Today on Rambling About Cars, we go behind the scenes at Goodwood with a special guest. Hyundai has a new electric car that we know everything about, and yes, I'm saying that with a bit of irony. And because it's almost the 4th of July in America, we have a very fun, very different cheap car challenge coming up later on. So, without further ado, it's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith. Mr. Chris Bruce is across the way, and who do we have with us?
We have Jeff Perez with us. Jeff, introduce
yourself.
Welcome back.
It's me,
welcome back.
Perez. It's good to be back. It's been a minute.
It's been a little bit. Senior editor, you were over at you were across the pond at Goodwood, and we're going to get into all of that stuff. What do you got going on in your life right now, man?
Right now, nothing. Just glad to be home for a little bit. I've been on the road like crazy. So yeah, just kind of chilling right now. But
cool.
Excited to talk about Goodwood.
All right, so tell us all about Goodwood. So first question, is this your first time going there, or have you been there before?
No, this is my second time at Goodwood.
Okay.
I was there in 2019 with Lexus when they debuted the LC convertible prototype. So that was the first time we saw a prototype of that. And this is now my second time. And I went there with Subaru because they had some really cool stuff to show everybody. And yeah, we got to go behind the scenes. We got to check out the rally stuff. I mean, where should I start? Should I go like day by day, or should I just hit the high notes?
Let me actually ask an interesting question first, because you were there in 2019. And then, of course, COVID disrupted everything for 2020 and to a degree for 2021.
Yeah.
Did it feel like 2019 to you, or did it still seem like it had a little bit of reservation? Because from the outside, we were talking about this, of course, in our teams chat. It felt like there was a lot happening this year, like almost like a pre-COVID event.
It was insane. Like 2019 wasn't even this crazy.
Oh, really?
To me.
Okay.
It was so busy. There were so many stands. It was so. What people were telling me is that they've canceled a lot of auto shows in England in general. So the London Motor Show is like not a big thing anymore. There's not a lot of concours events. So Goodwood is now like the big show there. Mm-hmm. And so this year felt like a really big deal. They had a bunch of debuts. They had a bunch of stands. There were so many classic cars. Like a lot of people were really taking the hill climb seriously too, which is not, some people like to go and just do it to say we've done it. But a lot of people, it felt like they were really trying to get that record. So it was a lot of fun. It was chaotic, but it was a lot of fun. Cool.
I've got a bunch of questions. I don't know necessarily how we should structure this. So let me ask the first question off the top of my head, and we'll go from there. I've never been there. Smith, I don't think you've ever been there. I assume the majority of our listeners have never been there. Paint the picture. What's the atmosphere like? You're someone, and you're going to go to the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And obviously we might not get the behind the scenes access that you have, but what's it like? Is it,
what's the vibe?
Exactly. What's the vibe?
The vibe is very British.
Okay, what does that mean to you? So we gotta.
So I mean, like you're out there in the British, countryside, and you're literally at this dude's house. Like for people who don't know, it's this guy Lord March who has a humongous house and humongous piece of land. And a driveway, which is what you see here, that's his driveway. That's not a racetrack. Like that's his little driveway that people drive up and do this whole thing. So it's super British, like old school kind of, that kind of vibe. But it's really cool. I mean, it's way different from a traditional auto show. Obviously, one, you're outside. Everything's totally outside. But it's also like you have a lot of the new stuff. So I know BMW had a big showing this year. Obviously, Subaru. And then you can walk through like the paddock where all the old school, and I mean like, pre-war race cars are. So you have like the Beast of Turin, which is like that Fiat with the crazy,
28 liter engine,
28 liter,
nice.
4-cylinder, 28 liter 4-cylinder engine, which is insane. And then you have, all the open Astons and Bentleys and all that stuff. And it's a totally different vibe from any traditional auto show, but I kind of like it better. And then you also have the rally stage, which is it's a little bit of a hike away from the main like circuit or the main driveway, I guess. And you just have
you spent a whole day there basically, right, during your trip?
Yeah. So on Friday we did the rally stuff, and So Subaru brought us in, obviously,
Mhm.
and Travis Pastrana was there, their driver, and they had one of the STI rally cars. The plan was for us to ride shotgun with him
Oh,
in the
the
rally
timing
car.
is perfect too on the
Yeah,
YouTube
there's
video.
Travis.
We're looking at Travis Pastrana.
Yeah. So the plan was for us to ride shotgun on the rally stage, and before we got there, he actually flipped it, which I don't know how you can do that on that rally stage, to be honest, because it's not a
It's
technical
Travis
course.
though.
There are like 2 or 3 jumps, but it's not technical at all. So yeah, he rolled it. He bent the roll cage, and once the roll cage is bent, we can't do anything. We can't go inside of it. So
So that was going to
uh,
be your ride along
that was going to be our ride along.
in the rally car, and you weren't able to do that. Bummer.
Yeah, we weren't able to do it, unfortunately, but it was all right. We got to see a bunch of other cool stuff on Friday at the rally stage, and then Saturday we had yeah, that's the hell. We actually got helicoptered to the event.
Right. I want to
Which
talk about
Oh,
the
wow.
helicopter
Okay.
experience when we get there. I knew about that, but yeah.
yeah, Saturday we had a front row kind of view of the first corner. So there's suites, like they come
You're
off the
talking of the
line.
hill climb now,
Up the
right?
hill
Not of
climb.
the
Yeah,
rally
yeah.
stage. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is Saturday. So up the
Mhm.
hill climb, there's a starting point. They go up and they make a sharp right turn, and there are suites right in front of that turn. And it's us and it's a few other, manufacturers that are there, and they bring in media and customers and stuff like that. And that's, to me, that's the best spot to be, because you can see all the action right there at the beginning.
So
So
when you say suites, I mean you said earlier that this is like some guy's driveway.
yeah,
Are
yeah.
this is this all brought in, or is there actually structure that's there full time? Because
No, it's all.
when I think suites, I'm thinking like at tracks like Indian places where it's the stuff's just always there.
Yeah, no, it's all brought in. I mean, I say his driveway, but it's I don't know exactly how long it is, but it's all just land around it. There's
I
no.
actually looked it up before. It is 1.16 miles long.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I didn't know that. But yeah, it's all just land and forest and stuff around it. There are no structured buildings other than his house, quote unquote, which I don't even think he lives in anymore. So yeah, it's crazy to see. I was saying this as we were leaving, but I would love to see what the land sort of looks like. I would love to just walk around with no structures, no buildings, no
Mhm.
cars, no nothing, because it has to be just a massive piece of property. It's a lot. It's intense.
Very cool.
Now we were just looking at a photo that popped up a little bit ago, and by the way, if you're listening on Spotify or on Google or wherever you're listening, we do have this also on YouTube, Motor One Podcast on YouTube, where you can visually see what we're doing. But we appreciate all of our audio streamers. We were looking at, I'm guessing it was Subaru's paddock for the event there. I didn't
Um,
realize. I mean, was that
yeah.
was that an official Subaru thing there? Because I'm looking over at that first gen Impreza rally car and just kind of fallen a little bit in love again with it.
Yeah, it kind of varies. So I think there are definitely some personal like owners that just have collections. I
Okay.
want to say those are Subaru's cars, but I'm not 100% sure.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, there's
Because
there's there's a lot of just cool stuff that people just bring in. I mean, it's not as structured as, like I said, some of the other auto shows. So you can have just owners come in and bring their collections.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's just a ton of cool stuff.
yeah, I mean that's a first gen Impreza, and it looks like what's that? Like an 0203 bug eye
Yeah,
WRX in the
Right.
middle.
And then like an '04 on the left.
Yeah,
04, 05.
later. But we're also looking. What's that? Like an older Citroen Izara, I think, the rally car.
Yeah, I can only
I
see the Citroen Total logo on it.
It's probably good that you went, Jeff,
Oh,
because
never mind. Here,
I would
you can look
never
at the top
leave.
here. It
I
is
would
Zara.
never
You're
leave
right.
the just the rally area.
Yeah.
I would just. I mean, I really got into rally in this era, the late '90s, early 2000s.
Mhm.
Yeah, that
Oh
looks
yeah.
like just total fun.
You would
So
have
so
you would have a field day just walking around looking at all that stuff.
I would
There's so
I would
much
just
cool
quit
stuff.
Motor One, and I would go up to this I would go up to this guy's house and be like, "Do you need somebody to just like mow the grass or something so
Yeah.
I can stay here, change the cakes in the urinals, whatever it takes, man."
Yeah.
I just
So
imagine you as Dan Aykroyd in Caddyshack, just like hunting gophers there and watching rally cars.
I can get him. I can get him. So you were there with Subaru.
Mhm.
Of course, Travis Pastrana has another Subaru that recently debuted. Did you get a chance to spend any time with the family huckster? And for those that don't know, we're talking about this wild old Subaru GL that has been just
There's
transformed
nothing left of that Subaru GL.
into a monster Gymkhana car.
We're looking at it here.
Aero. It's like the fenders fly up every time you brake on purpose. Because I mean, did you get a good chance to spend some time with that?
Yeah, so we actually got a chance on Saturday in our suite. Travis came in, talked to us for a couple minutes, and just hung out. And I talked to him for maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and just talking about the car. And he's just like the nicest, coolest guy, And I grew up watching him on like Nitro Circus on MTV and stuff like that. So it was a little bit like, meeting just someone you really like and admire. But yeah, the car was awesome, and we got to go see it in the paddock. And yeah, to your point, it's a GL, quote unquote, but it is a full carbon. It's a full carbon fiber station wagon around a WRC chassis, basically, right? Like the headlights I think are original, and the grill and stuff
I bet
like
the
that.
Headlights and the badge are original, and everything else.
Yeah, the radio is actually original. They wanted to keep the radio inside.
They have a radio in it?
Yeah, it has a radio.
And then I want to show folks the here, hold on 1 second. Here you can see the active arrow all deployed, like Smith was talking about, on the fenders that fly up.
It's crazy. It's crazy the way
fenders open up. Like it's
insane. So when we got to the pit, we talked to the project manager, I guess, and he sort of walked us through the whole thing. And if you go on Moto1's Instagram, there's a good Instagram reel I posted which shows it, going up and down. So that rear wing at the top extends 8 inches from the body. And then you have the flaps on the back and the flaps on the front. And it's fun because you can actually use the steering wheel to extend them or retract them. So it's not necessarily based on movement exclusively, but like when he was racing or when he was doing his time attack on the hill climb, it's if he puts enough pressure and there are enough G's on the car, they will go up automatically. So it knows when it needs to be. Like, it's just this crazy, crazy piece of engineering. It's amazing. And it's a station wagon. Like, you would never think that Subaru would have gone all out with a station wagon and done this, but yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, I love that they
the
did
instrument cluster that they made for this thing. That is also super like 80s retro futuristic.
So
it looks
80s.
like it should be in kit. Like, yeah.
It is so 80s. And what really got me, and Jeff, I don't know if you can add any context being at Goodwood, the Mercedes AMG 1 made its kind of big public debut. Amazing hypercar. The first run they did, it starts out kind of slow. I think it was on Thursday. They get out to sort of that main spot there, where the spectators can see, and they stop. There's a couple seconds, the car lowers. It's like the spoiler comes up, the things come up, the flaps come up on the fender. It's like it deploys all its active aero, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then I saw the wagon, and it's like, that's even cooler.
Yeah.
I mean, was there any sense of that around there? Because I would hate to be Mercedes AMG getting shown up by a Subaru wagon when it comes to stuff like active aero. Because I mean, that thing, it drops my jaw every time I see it go.
Oh, I mean, it's great because all of the paddocks and pits and stuff are open to anyone. So if you're an engineer, you can walk through and just see what's going on. So I would have loved to see like a Mercedes engineer who worked on the AMG 1 walk over to the Subaru and be like, man, that's cooler than what we just did on our $1 million hypercar.
Let's be honest here. There's someone else that kind of embarrassed Mercedes this year. And Smith, you and I talked about this a little bit last week, that McMurtry, it's either Spierling or Spirling. I haven't heard a good way of saying it. But Jeff, did anyone say it? Have you heard it said? Do you know how one pronounces it?
I think it's the McMurtry Spearling. I think,
Spearling. Okay.
McMurtry
Like,
Spearling.
but I could be totally wrong. But I think that's what I've heard. What I heard when I was there. So
I think we can just call it fast because it
Yeah.
is the new Goodwood record holder.
yeah.
And it looks fantastically adorable. Did you get a chance to see it there?
Oh yeah,
Is it as adorable in person as it looks?
Is it as
It's
tiny
on
as it
photos.
looks?
It is as tiny as it looks. It is as adorable as it looks. And when it's moving, it looks fast, right? Like it's hard to judge something on video, but when you're watching they have like a big video screen, so you can watch everything. When we were watching it on Sunday, doing its full like record-breaking run, it looked like one of those old school films that was like sped up. Even though it was like normal speed, it was just moving so fast, and it would go past the main straight, and you would just hear gasp, not like wow, it would like gasp, and people would be like
Wow.
scared that it was moving that fast. It's. I said in 2019 when the Volkswagen IDR broke the Goodwood record, I was there to see that, and I said that was like the fastest car I've ever seen in person. This is faster. Like it's so much faster. I guess it's because it's smaller too, and it's so compact. It just darts around, but it looks so fast in person. It was crazy.
You're not wrong though. So to put it into perspective for listeners, the Volkswagen ID Buzz, what am I saying? The Volkswagen IDR, I got buzz on the brain.
It's
the
been a
Volkswagen
minute since IDR was around. It's all right.
The Volkswagen IDR, it did the Goodwood Hill climb in 41.18 seconds. And like Jeff said, that was in 2019. This thing, and what boggles my mind is the IDR was purpose built. Like they wanted to go out and break every friggin' record they could find. This thing from a company that, I'll be honest, that no one really ever heard of, came out of nowhere, went up the Goodwood Hill climb in 39.08 seconds.
So
2 seconds quicker than
1.1 miles.
41.18 would be, yeah, two seconds quicker, right?
Don't ask me to do math on the podcast.
Okay.
We've learned this lesson. It's faster.
And it's a lot faster though.
It's notably faster. 39.
Both are electric vehicles, but it's just shockingly faster. Just like came out of nowhere.
Even if you look at our list of the top 10 fastest runs, 39 seconds
right here.
Right? And the next fastest is 45 seconds. So it's 6 seconds faster than an 1100 horsepower electric Porsche Cayman. Like that's crazy. That's just an insane figure because everything else is relatively close between 2 and 7 or 8, but between 1 and 2, the gulf there is insane.
And there's the Subaru GL, the family huckster, the Gymkhana car that's purpose built to like do donuts. Did it in 46.2 seconds. It was the fourth fastest. So, I think it's important to mention though. I mean, the McMurtry, it's insanely fast, but it's also like this little tiny thing. I hate to say you can't really compare it to other cars because it is a legit car and everything is legit. But I mean, the other cars are, I don't know, car sized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I do think you can compare it to the VW IDR. Like that was a purpose-built race car. This is also they're now saying they're going to make a road version. What we kind of saw there is track only, but still 2 track only cars. And this thing still just spanked the VW and came out of nowhere. And it's just impressive and interesting and cool to me.
Yeah, well, the Subaru was fast. Like it doesn't look fast, it was. Obviously. And so Travis, when he was in the paddock with us and we were talking to him, the Porsche came on screen, the 718 came on screen while we were talking, and he looked up and he's like, that thing scares me. That not scares me. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said something to the effect of, I'm worried about that car, right? Because it's 1100 horsepower, whatever. And you could tell they were kind of sandbagging all weekend. But I don't think anybody really thought the McMurtry was going to be like, I don't know, it just came out of nowhere, like, and it just destroyed everybody. Like the Porsche was going to be fast. We knew the Subaru was going to be fast. And then McMurtry was like, nope, we're just 6 seconds faster than everybody, which is
totally.
crazy.
I think I wrote up the story about the McMurtry on Wednesday or Thursday or something like that of last week before it had done any of its runs. And they said, we're going to try for the record.
Yeah.
And I didn't put it in the story because we try to remain unbiased when we write. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, right. Volkswagen spent who knows how much money on that IDR. And just some company's going to come out and beat that time and something you're actually selling to people, not some like one-off EV. And boy, they did it. You know, they put their money where their mouth was. And
their first run, I think, of the whole event was like I think 41 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't the record, but it was close.
Yeah, and once you see that, it's like, well, hell, this is this is a surprise, isn't it? But hey, bravo to them. Well done.
Yeah.
Coming out of the bullpen to just like drop everybody's jaw.
Mm-hmm.
The Porsche looks better though, I gotta say.
Oh, the Porsche looks great.
We're looking at the Porsche now, and that's an all electric 718 Cayman that they ran up the hill.
And it's you have to think of it. It's the preview of what Porsche wants the next Cayman to be. Not that it's going to be able to have this performance, but we know the next Cayman and Boxster are going to be fully electric. So they're priming the pump by showing people, hey, an electric Porsche can be quick. Here's how quick it can be. So it's interesting stuff. Yeah,
you also had the super van was on there. The Ford Pro electric super van was fifth, I think. And one of the things Subaru said to me was, "We cannot lose to a minivan," when we were there watching on Sunday, and they didn't. But it was close.
What crazy world has this become, where we have a Subaru wagon not wanting to lose to a minivan at Goodwood, running insanely fast times?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So. Well, I mean, let's talk about the van a little bit, because I won't say it came out of nowhere, because we had teasers from Ford Pro in the UK and Ford Performance letting us know, hey, we're going to bring something. And then they said we're coming out with a super van, but they didn't really drop any stats until like just a few hours before they sent it out for a run. So we were kind of left a little surprised. Did you get a chance to see or learn anything more about the super van?
No, I really didn't. I saw it do its runs, and I know that Farley was he driving, or was he in the passenger seat? I know he was there, but it looked cool. It looked awesome. I mean, there was a point, I believe on Saturday, where it stopped in the middle, and a lot of people do this, where it stop in the middle and then they do some donuts and hype up the crowd. So they did that. That was fun, but it was fast. The thing is too, it's hard to see it in pictures, but the back end is almost completely gutted. So it's more like a pickup truck with a little ledge on it. Yeah.
Kind of see it in here. You can see that the back end is cut out.
The arrow is very similar to the Ford GT, the way the Ford GT kind of slopes in at the back, but it still has kind of the wide rear flank back there. It's similar to that. And I mean, it's like the Subaru, the GL, right?
Yeah.
It's got the shape, but it's not a van. It's a freaking race car that they just put kind of a bulky body on it
left in this thing.
Yeah. And you know what? As long as you can design the body to work halfway decent, I mean, shape it however you want. But it's a race car. It's a race car. And hey, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yep. But going back to your trip, just because I think people in a certain way like to hear what we get to do. Tell us about your helicopter rides, because I thought that was exciting to me. I've only been on a helicopter once, and they're interesting. Have you been on a helicopter before this event?
No, this was my first time, and I was a little nervous on the first ride.
Here, I'll pull up the picture for folks, and tell us about that.
Yeah, so we stayed relatively close. I don't know, 40 minutes away by car, but just the traffic to get into Goodwood is so insane, and the parking and everything's crazy. So Subaru has done this many, many years now. It's like their big, key event. And if you go read our 5 questions with Dominic Infante from Subaru, this is his baby. This is his trip, right? So they love doing this. And yeah, helicopter's the way to go for sure. But I was very
I feel
nervous.
like that's a very much a Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you have the means, it is so choice.
I highly suggest it.
but there was a lot of helicopters. Like there's a lot of really rich dudes at this event, obviously, because they've got, the cars. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of helicopters. But yeah, I was nervous. But then like once we took off and once we're in the sky, I was like, this is amazing. And then, you can see in that picture just flying over the British countryside, and then we flew
It is
over the
gorgeous.
coast. Like it's amazing. And all these pictures, by the way, former guest of the podcast, Mike Schaefer, shout out to him. He was on the
Yes,
trip.
Totally.
Had a lot of fun with him. So
you
yeah,
definitely want to go back a few podcasts if you missed that, because we had him on the show talking about just how he takes photos, some of his adventures, and boy, has he had adventures. But this, I mean,
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm pretty jealous. This looks like just a crazy good adventure. I do have another question I want to ask you here before we move on. Goodwood is, as you said, it's like a major car show, but of course, at the center of it all is this guy's driveway that people are driving up. A
Yeah.
traditional major car show, everything is static. Obviously, people are showing up here to go up the hill. But are you seeing a lot more in terms of cars being driven, whether it's not necessarily even going up the hill versus just being on static display? Because that really excites me, seeing cars actually doing what they were built to do as opposed to just sitting still and looking great.
Yeah, 100%. And you're seeing cars that you may never see in person again, like the pre-war stuff or the early teens and 20s stuff. And you're seeing them drive, which is amazing, like to see those cars in motion. And you have, these pro drivers that are behind the wheel, these 19 teens, Astons or whatever, and they're hooning it around the corner and they're like sideways, they're, leaning into it. Like it's super cool. And the super thin, like bicycle tires that these cars are riding on, that's always fun for me to see those cars. Actually, there was a guy who spun a really early Jag. Was it an Indy car, a Formula car? He spun it on the last corner, but he didn't hit anything, so he got away safely, which is good. But yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's definitely one of my favorite events of the year.
I'm just curious. So I know our coworker Brandon Turkis has been to the Goodwood Revival, which is kind of all about I think it's pre-1960 kind of stuff. Have you ever done the Goodwood Revival? And if someone invited you, would you go?
Oh, I would absolutely go. I haven't done it yet, but so Subaru also does another event around Revival just to do it because they love it so much. And it's sort of down the street from where his actual estate is. There's an actual track, and they have the cars go around the track. Everybody dresses in period clothing. Festival of Speed's a little more casual. You can kind of just wear whatever you want, but Revival, you have to wear period clothing to fit in with the whole thing.
I love
think
that.
You have to wear it to get in. Period.
I think you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's one I definitely want to go to, but I like the Festival of Speed. I kind of like the chaos, and it's a little more casual, and you can go see a ton of different things, new stuff and old stuff. So I like it in that respect.
Cool.
One more question here that I'll ask. I don't know if you have any more, Bruce, but one more that I'll ask. One of the things that I really enjoy about going to different car events, whether it's big like Goodwood or just like small racing events, the cars that people are driving to the events, the parking lot spotters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see anything that was just like, no way did that dude just drive that here and park it in this gravel lot? Did you see anything like that?
Well, Chris Smith, I'm a fancy boy, so I flew in on a helicopter, so I didn't get a chance to check out.
You weren't walking around the grounds. You didn't fly over the cars as you were looking down.
No, because where we flew in, it's like near the Revival track, and then you drive up, and you're in like a special parking lot. Although he's
a fancy boy.
Yeah, on the way out of on our last day, there was it a Singer 911 or a Gunther Works? One of the highly modified, Resto Mods one that was just kind of sitting there, and that was cool. And then there's a few other things we saw, but yeah, the main parking lot is the place to be. In 2019, when I went, we walked around the main parking lot a little bit, and I saw people drive their Morgan 3-wheelers to the event or little Lotus 7s, which is funny because it rained the entire time in 2019, so they must have gotten soaked on the way there. But yeah, that's another fun part if you're driving to the event.
Well, then, Fancy Pants, since you're living uptown, why don't you tell me about some of the helicopters that you saw?
Boy, helicopters to
They
me
have
are
they have like rotors. And...
Yeah, they do. They have the spinny things on the top, and some of them have the spinnies on the back. But that's like a alien technology to me. I have no idea what helicopter is what.
Well, get used to it because we have flying cars coming soon.
Yeah.
I mean, we have them now. They're called helicopters, but you could have a few more rotors on there, right?
Yeah.
Super brief tangent. I can't remember whose quote this is, but someone said there's a quote about aeronautics somewhere that planes, they harness the air and glide through it. Helicopters beat the air into submission to get through it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So we talked about some old cars, some new cars, some very cool stuff at Goodwood. Let's talk about what's next. Let's transition here. We just a few days ago got the first official look at the Hyundai Ioniq 6, which will be, if you're familiar with Hyundai's Ioniq sub-brand, they have the 5, which is, depending on who you talk to, either a small hatchback or a small crossover. And the Ioniq 6 will be a small sedan that will compete against the Tesla Model 3. And so we finally seen the actual design of it. And as Smith alluded to at the beginning of the show, we still have no technical details to share with you. Hyundai released some very good images of the interior and exterior, and they told us nothing about the actual vehicle underneath. But
that's coming. That's coming later on, though, right? A little bit later in July, I think they said.
Rumored to be July 14th is the date we get technical details. That's
which, I mean, it's not the first time Hyundai's done this.
It's kind of their norm these days.
Yeah, they do it all the time.
We don't have to go into just kind of how weird and unfortunate that is. It's like, if you got a car, just tell us about it. But
just tell us everything. But anyway. So we finally got to see the exterior totally uncamouflaged, the interior totally uncamouflaged. We're looking at it here, and Jeff, in addition to being a fantastic Motor1.com editor, he also runs our Twitter feed, and he put up a poll. Was it yesterday or the day before last? Asking people. Yesterday, okay. Asking people to compare it against the Tesla Model 3, like we did in our headline, and it got a ton of attention from folks. So it's very much worth talking about and worth asking. Is this a Tesla Model 3 fighter? Would you rather have this than a Tesla Model 3, et cetera, et cetera? So let's go from there.
Well, first of all, to your point, I tweeted out the links saying, based on our headline, that's Tesla Model 3 fighter, because that's basically all the information we have.
I mean, in terms of size, from what we can tell, in terms of physical footprint, from what we can tell, this is a Tesla Model 3
absolutely.
fighter.
Sure. Absolutely. There's no reason to doubt it.
And you might be surprised to hear this, but the Tesla nerds were out in full force against this car. And
with pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, they spammed our poll. So I ran a poll that was like, would you rather have this or the Tesla Model 3? Totally innocuous poll, like, hey, 2 electric cars that are the same size are going to compete. Which one would you rather have? And we got just the worst comments of like, oh, this is the ugliest car I've ever seen. The Tesla Model 3 is great. I love Elon Musk, just whatever. So, yeah, we had a lot of engagement is the good news.
Hey, thanks for engaging, Tesla people. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just on Twitter, because I want to point out here, if you're watching on YouTube, we had 40 comments on this story, which is kind of a lot for us. Like
it's
5
a
or
little
10,
high.
Okay, 40's a lot. And
considering we know nothing about the freaking car yet. I mean, This is just images of the outside and the inside. But I think that's speaking to me a little bit, because I really like the way this car looks, and I'm wondering if others, maybe from a certain, fans of a certain other electric automaker, feel a little threatened. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Model 3 is bad, but it doesn't do much for me in terms of personality. Well, and this Hyundai does.
I think
real quick. Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
I got to push it. Smith, is that a Lockheed Electra? I was trying to figure out what kind of plane that was when I was writing the story.
No, that's not.
It's not? Okay.
Well, actually, let me no.
That's a cool plane, though. whatever it is.
Nope.
I could have sworn it was a Lockheed, but okay.
It's not an Electra. I don't know what it is offhand. I'd have to look it up. Sorry, I'm
Deal.
failing you with
No.
my aircraft knowledge.
You and I are both plane nerds, so I had to ask, and this was the opportunity. So, Jeff, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Please go ahead.
No,
Yes.
I was just going to say that to Smith's point. I guess some people are intimidated, but I also think there's like a small the vocal minority of Tesla fans on Twitter with poorly cropped images of a Model 3 in their profile image. Like they all come out in full force and say it's ugly,
Poorly
it's terrible.
cropped.
But I think anyone, just not even an EV buyer, just anyone who's looking for a nice small car will find this super, super appealing. To me, the design, I think Brett Evans, our other senior editor, said this, that like 98% of it is really, really good, other than like the wheels and the back diffuser's a little busy, but it looks just amazing. I think it's gonna be really good.
I really hope they let you change the color of that interior. The purple and blue does nothing for me, but that is the minorest of quibbles. So
it has to be. I mean, it's 2022. I can change the color of the light in my podcast light that's right in front of me. And that was like $10. So I'd be willing to bet that you can. Let's I mean, since we're talking about design though, let's talk about the interior really quick for just a moment, because what we're seeing, and it's a theme that we're seeing on more and more electric cars going forward. You have your digital driver display, and then you have your center infotainment screen. They're all bundled together just under a big single piece of glass, a single bezel that just kind of sits there on a dash that to me also looks kind of plain. I mean, it's not unattractive, but it's a very Spartan atmosphere. And we're seeing that trend more and more. And maybe this question isn't necessarily specific to the Ioniq 6, but what do we think of that kind of minimalist trend? There's just not a lot of personality in cars like that for me. You know, we have this big kind of flat, bulky dash with a screen that's just sort of sitting there, and that's, I mean, there's just not much personality.
I personally don't think it's that minimalist. And I'm trying to be able to pause this image for a second. So you're right. You do have the driver digital instrument display and the infotainment display right next to each other. They're two screens, but in one bezel surrounding them. But you also have this other smaller screen below it for the HVAC controls. Those all appear to me to be capacitive buttons. And then you have this, super minimalist center console. I think the light strip, while the color combo isn't to my liking, it's very like 1980s mall the way it looks like here. But I do think there's a lot here. You get like this kind of faux suede Alcantara covering on the dashboard. You have this metallic flavor. I almost put this when I was writing the story, but I didn't. To me, don't these look like the fins off of like a 57 Cadillac or something like that? There's something kind of vaguely retro about the way this is sculpted. To me, it is not minimalist. That it's minimal, but there are really pretty details here that I like. So
I mean, maybe it'll look better with additional photos. I mean, like I said, this isn't terrible, but I've just noticed, and I don't necessarily want a really busy interior. I don't want to go back to the days of like a Pontiac Grand Prix with 70 buttons on the steering wheel and then another 40 on the console. But I just feel like I want a little bit more personality, and maybe we'll get a little bit of more of that as we go forward. This also has side mirrors that are cameras, and you have on each corner of the interior, or are they on the outside? Because from the interior photo, it looks like you have displays on the inside.
Yeah, they bend. Yeah. You can see in this image here, they're angled toward kind of the driver view on each side.
So it's basically like the exterior side view mirrors, but they're displays on the inside, showing you what the very thin cameras on the outside are displaying. I think that's kind of a neat touch.
Yep, the Honda E, which we don't get here, does that as well.
Yeah, the Honda E also has just like an entire bank of screens that go all the way across to the passenger side, which I'm actually kind of surprised that they don't have a passenger side screen in this car, because that's a new thing that a lot of manufacturers are starting to do. But to your point about like a minimalist, I think I sort of agree with Bruce in that it's not necessarily minimalist because there are a lot of cool details, and I like the little screen for the HVAC stuff, which I think is kind of borrowed from like the EV6. But I don't love the big screens on top of the dash, and I like it just doesn't look good. And I know why they do it because technology moves so fast that like, I don't know how big these are, but those look like maybe 13, 14-inch screens. And that might be being generous, but like
12 to 13, I would say
12
is
to
fair.
13. But like maybe in 3 years or 4 years, Tesla's going to come out with a bigger screen. So then Hyundai's going to have to quickly replace that with a bigger screen. So that's why they do it, right? A manufacturer told me that a long time ago, but yeah, that's why they don't embed them in the dash anymore. But I just don't like it. It doesn't look good to me. It doesn't look good in any car. I'm driving the BMW iX right now with the new iDrive 8, which has the big, curve screen, and that looks kind of cool. But it still just feels like they just plopped it on top
Just
of the
plop it
dash, and
on
that was
top.
it.
It
Yeah,
has an afterthought. I understand the reasoning, but engineer your
yeah,
dash better. I mean,
right.
come up with a smarter solution. If you're worried about the technology changing, then be creative to make something look good while incorporating the changes instead of just an
Yeah,
afterthought.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys, and I wrote the story up about this, and it's something I couldn't figure out, and I actually put into the story, and I'm not certain myself because Honda kind of released these images to us and said here, and there wasn't really like a press release or an explanation or like, hey, this is what this is, and this is what this does to go with it. So the 4 lights that are on the steering wheel, which you can see in this image, you can see there's clearly capacitive buttons on the spokes. There's 4 lights on the steering wheel here, and also you can see them here, and I'm pretty sure you can see one of them. Oh, they're gone on this image. Do you think that's purely just for aesthetics? Do you think that's serving some sort of functional purpose? What's your theory? Because I don't know.
Well, so I know for a fact that the Ioniq 5 also has that.
Oh,
But
okay.
I haven't driven the Ioniq 5, so I can't tell you what they do. But it would be smart if they were like part of some active safety system or something. Like they go green to
Sure.
tell you that the lane centering is on, or they go red to tell you to take, the wheel. But that's just a random guess. But I know the Ioniq 5 does have those lights.
Oh, okay. I hadn't noticed them on that.
I've got nothing. I mean, my first thought was, oh, it looks like a shift light, but not at an EV.
Yeah.
This so if you're watching on YouTube, I've centered it to this like specific image, and this combination of like neon purple and neon blue, it's just like, did they watch the first Terminator and the tech noir scene from that where the Terminator's going? It's just so like 80s
It's very
neon
80s with the color.
Blade Runner too.
color scheme.
Yeah.
It's interesting that that's where they're going with this, but like I said, there are a lot of cool details. The side mirrors, the tech, the exterior design. A lot of people are saying in our comments, they were saying, "Oh, it looks like a stretched Volkswagen Beetle," which I can kind of see to a certain extent.
There's a little bit of that with the way, just with the symmetry in the roof, how the roof looks like. It doesn't. I mean, it slopes back, but it looks very, very symmetrical. Back to front, I guess is a good way.
And it also has
it.
this like double spoiler motif while we're talking about the back, where there's a spoiler underneath the rear window, and that has the high center mounted stoplight on it, and then it has like this sculpted ducktail spoiler in the actual tail. That
double wing.
It's double wing, and none of the rest of this car makes it you think, oh, this is a sporty vehicle. But then you get to the back and you're like, oh, wait, is it maybe? Like,
is it a sporty vehicle?
Sporty with it?
I really want to know more about it because I totally get like mid 80s Fords, like the Mustang SVO,
AmeriCorps XR4 Ti.
Yeah, which was the Sierra, the Cosworth across the pond. I definitely kind of get that vibe with it, which again, that was an 80s theme. So with the color inside, maybe Hyundai is trying to tell us a little something.
While we're doing the 80s thing, these pixel taillights where each bit of the taillight's its own little separate, small little red square that's separated in black around them. Like I would love to talk to the designer of this car and just wonder, like, was there some sort of like 80s retro futuristic inspiration in here? Or if not, where did they come up with these things that, Smith, you and I are kind of seeing this? Jeff, it seems like you're not seeing this. Maybe you disagree.
No, I agree. But it's a theme now with Hyundai, right? Because the Ioniq 5 has
The Ioniq 5 has the same
thing.
taillight. Yes.
Yeah, and you've seen some of the concepts even. They have that same retro futurism kind of thing, which I really, really love. I love that aesthetic. But the funny thing is, or I guess the fun thing is, it's like this car does, outside of those taillights, this car really doesn't share a lot with the Ioniq 5 or like any other Hyundais. Like Hyundai does such a good job of separating their cars with distinctive designs. Like it's not a familial thing. Like not every car has the same grill or headlights or fascia or whatever. And I think that's actually really good. I don't know. I've said this before, but I don't know what the benefit of having all of your cars look the same is, right? Like, why do you want your Ford Edge to look like a Ford Escape? That's only confusing people. I don't understand that. So I think Hyundai doing that, sort of differentiating their cars, is a really interesting thing.
Right.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think Hyundai and Kia, I think they're just killing it right now with their designs. I think I'm in the minority of that on that when it comes to cars like the Elantra. But I think they're just very dynamic in the way they look. I think they stand out, and I think they look good. This is the latest in the line.
And I started this conversation by saying we'd have no technical details about this vehicle, but we kind of sort of do. We know that it rides on Hyundai and Kia's eGMP platform, electric global modular platform. And so that means that it has the same underpinnings as the Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. So at least in theory, it should be able to share batteries and motors and stuff like that with those vehicles. So while we don't know things like range or power or anything like that for sure, theoretically, anything those vehicles can do, this should be able to do. So, and those are considered fairly good EVs by the modern market, especially in their price point. So,
and an EV6 GT is not slow.
No, it's over 500. It's like 560 horsepower, I think.
It's
over 500.
This would make a really good looking, aggressive high performance sports sedan.
Yeah, can you imagine one with like almost like an 80 style Porsche whale tail spoiler that just comes out the back? Like
that's not bad.
Cool.
That's not bad, Bruce.
Good. Yeah,
they're doing an N version. They already said they are. So hopefully they make it look crazy, because I want it to look even more crazy than it already does.
Those wheels need to go. I'm not a fan.
I don't like those wheels.
I mean, can you call those kind of like snowflake-ish?
No, they're like
wheels?
They're weird. They're like totally asymmetrical. There's no way that I can tell that you sliced those that you get the same thing if you folded it in half. They're
if you're looking at it through like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get like sort of like a 5-star wheel as you look through it with a kaleidoscope. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, they're
definitely strange.
Yeah, I was gonna say polarizing. Like they're not gonna be for everybody.
Definitely strange. Definitely polarizing. Folks, what do you think? If you haven't seen this yet at motor1.com, go to motor1.com where you can learn all about the Ioniq 6. You also, if you're listening, try to go over to our YouTube channel, Motor One Podcast, where you can see and hear what we're talking about. Of course, we always welcome your comments on our Motor One Podcast YouTube channel. We welcome your comments on our articles that go up every Friday. We love all of our listeners that are listening on the audio platform, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you can. Like, follow, subscribe, then like, follow, subscribe. Again, make fake accounts. No, don't do that. Do not make fake accounts.
Yeah.
But spread the word, because we want to keep growing. And since we're talking a little bit about feedback, we're going to take a little bit of time here, because we asked for some emails last week, and we did get a very, very good email from one of our regular listeners, Ted,
our favorite guest.
I'm not gonna say the last name just for security.
Okay,
but
someone who's been on the show who's been named Ted. That's all I'm gonna
Ted
say.
Nugent.
Yeah, Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent emailed us.
No, Ted Nugent did not email us. But we got a great email asking a very interesting question, I thought, and we're going to discuss it pretty quick here, and we'll get to some other commenters here next week because there were some other great comments on YouTube. But Ted sent in this email. I'm just going to kind of breeze through it here really quick. You're going
to have to paraphrase it because Ted went into some real detail. Good on him, but
emailing this one since it's a bit longer. Y'all challenged us to email anyways.
Totally.
Will EVs break the life cycle of car ownership? Now, what does that mean, you might ask? I'll paraphrase here. Ted breaks it down into 4 categories. Basically, tier 1, okay, you're going out, you're buying new cars between $35,000 and $100,000. Maybe you're buying a car every 2 or 3 years. So that's kind of like the top tier, right?
Trading it in every 2 to 3 years is kind of the key to what he's saying.
Right.
And then the expense.
Right. And then the second tier, okay, you're buying new or certified used cars, a little bit cheaper, maybe $20,000, $35,000. If not, they might also be buying the tier 1's used cars after depreciation kicks in after a couple of years, but doing that every 3 to 6 years.
Yes, keeping it longer is the key. That they might be buying something,
keeping it longer.
Keeping it longer. Okay.
And then tier 3, okay, you're buying used cars between 10 and 20 grand. You're probably buying the used cars that tier 2 had just used. You're doing that every 5 to 7 years. And then the bottom level of this tier here, you're buying used cars under 10,000. You're usually buying the used cars from tier 2 and tier 3 once they're done with them, and you're keeping them as long as they can keep running. So you sort of get this life cycle where at the very top of the chain, always getting a new car every 2 or 3 years, and then it goes progressively lower in price, holding on to the car progressively longer. The question Ted asks about this.
I didn't study for this test.
You didn't study for the test? It's okay. It's open book, man. We got you.
Okay.
The question is simply, will electric cars kind of break this cycle? And to support that, okay, he says until batteries get to where they will charge at least half as quick as gas, refueling with comparable range, which will probably happen, but not until the next generation of batteries, possibly into the middle of the next decade. These people just won't be buying EVs that otherwise would be falling into tier 1 and tier 2. So basically, he's saying, okay, it's going to be harder for these cars to kind of trickle down and get cheaper. So will EVs essentially wipe out tier 4 and maybe do a significant amount of damage to tier 3? Or will these tiers kind of stay? I mean, will the cycle kind of stay in place? Do you follow what I'm saying here, guys?
I
think so.
I do, because I read his question several times and had to do some research. No, this is not against Ted, but this is seriously like,
it's a very
answer this question.
Yeah,
I got to look some stuff up because it's an interesting question. And you paraphrased it. I'm going to paraphrase it, I hope, an even simpler way.
Okay.
That there is always a trickle down when it comes to used cars. People can buy a car. Someone buys a car for $100,000. They drive it for a few years. They sell it for $60,000. Someone picks up that car. They drive it for a few years. They sell it for $30,000, and it goes on down from there. And that's just the way things work. We have a cheap car challenge coming up when we're trying to spend $500 or $1,000 for a car. There's no car you can buy brand new today for $500 or $1,000. The reason you can't is because they've gone through that trickle down where they've gone through many owners, they've gone through many years, etc. And he is asking, will EVs disrupt that? Will the fact that, we're going through this transition period where none of us can argue this, that electric vehicles are the future. You hate them, you love them, whatever. I don't care. They're the future.
It's
That's
the future,
where the thing. So does this transition period mean that people of lower incomes or even medium incomes or things like that, where there might be a difficulty of finding a car in that space? And so I actually did some research here, and I'm going to share it real quick.
Okay. So you did more than me, because I read the message and then read it again, and it's an extraordinarily thought-provoking message. And it's one that I hadn't really considered before, which I find terrifically ironic, because I have I'm like the king of cheap cars, right?
Of course you are.
I just bought another one for $1,000 that's sitting 1,200 miles away from me. That who knows when I'm going to see it again. So I'm kind of familiar with this, but it never occurred to me whether EVs will kind of upset that a little bit. So what do you got, Bruce?
Let's start from the beginning. What it would cost you to buy a new car versus a new EV. So I looked it up. JD Power, this is a story as of, I believe, May 25th of 2022. They are saying that the average price to buy a new vehicle in May is $44,832, which, man, if you want to know how bad inflation's been, that is a 15.7% increase from a year ago. That's a big increase. Mm-hmm. That's beside the point. Anyways, keep in mind, 45 grand. Put 45 grand in your head. Also, our pals at Inside EVs, it just so happens, just ran this story of what the average EV is selling for brand new. And that is $54,000. So essentially, average new car cost 45 grand, average EV cost 54 grand.
Okay.
So does it cost more to buy an EV than your average car? Yes.
Yes.
It's, what would that be? What is that, like 20-ish percent, if I'm doing my math right? So you're spending about 20% more to get an EV. I also have, it just so happens I'm kind of familiar with EV prices right now. My parents just happened, literally this week, bought it's either 2017 or 2018 BMW i3. I don't know what they paid for it. My guess, pure guess, is somewhere between 18 and 25. And so that is your used car that you're going to buy. I also looked up, and I'm going to share this here. The Nissan Leaf is kind of famous as the EV bargain, or at least from what I have been seeing. So here's a Nissan Leaf, Fort Wayne, Indiana. So 78 miles from me, $10,900, which is
right now we're seeing some tier 2 and tier 3 vehicles, basically.
Right. Also, here's another one, also in Fort Wayne, different vehicle, also $10,900. And so, presenting this information, what I want to say is I don't think it is going to upset things. I don't think it is going to upset things. That there are going to be cheap EVs available, but the cheap EVs are going to be a compromise. That you buy a $1,000 Toyota, there are no $1,000 Toyota pickups. You buy a $1,000 Saturn SC2 from the mid-90s. That can take you, several hundred miles. You go and you fill it up with gas, and it can take you several hundred more miles. That you're not going to be able to do that with an EV anytime soon. But if you need an EV for that money, it's gonna be out there. You can find cheap EVs, and so I don't think things are going to change. Things just might evolve. That okay, I need a cheap car. Maybe I have to recharge it more often for a little while. It's not going to be forever, though. We know batteries are getting better. We know Nissan. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. We know Nissan and Honda and probably a bunch of other automakers. They're saying that solid state batteries late this decade, 2027, 2028, are going to be available, and that's going to increase ranges even further, and then eventually those are going to fall down. And so, maybe there's a brief hiccup somewhere along there, but it's not going to be very long. It's not going to be decades of people not being able to find cars or something like that. Maybe it's, a couple of years. Well, that's what I think from what I have seen. And now that I've been talking a bunch, please tell me I'm wrong.
Jeff, go ahead.
No, you're 100% right. I think you said a good phrase. We're in a transition period, right? Moving from gas to electric. I think there's a few things you got to think of. It's like, how long have EVs been on the road? You have the Leaf, you have maybe the Bolts, you have a few others.
That's the first generation to me. That the Leaf and the Bolt is kind of the beginning of things.
Right. So those are just beginning to get into the used market and get affordable. Mm-hmm. So they've been in the used market for a few years, but they haven't been that affordable. So as we see more EVs come in, they're going to push the prices on those down. Realistically, we're never going to see prices of used cars as low as they were 10, 15 years ago, right? Because every new car that comes out is way nicer than older cars, and they have more technology and they have more equipment. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see used car prices below like $5,000 in the next few years. Like it's
like
kind of
decent cars.
decent cars, right? Yeah. So like even like a Nissan Versa, like a base Nissan Versa, that's a nice car with a lot of technology. Like, I don't think people are going to be able to get those for less than $5,000 in 10 years or whatever. So it's all cyclical. It's all just going to trickle down. I think in 10 years, you'll be able to get a base Mustang Mach-E for like 20 grand or something like that. Like, it's all going to be
easily.
reasonable. People just don't understand that, maybe, because there's a lot of really negative articles out there saying EVs are more expensive. There's no used EVs. Well, like, yeah, EVs haven't been on the road that long, or good EVs haven't been on the road that long to fall into the used market and fall in price. Like, you got to be patient. So I think that's just where we are.
And I real quick, I want to just build on something Jeff said with good EVs. And like, I showed Nissan Leafs for 10 grand. My parents bought a BMW i3. Those aren't vehicles that necessarily can take you hundreds, that's not a cross-country trip vehicle.
Right.
But if you are going to the grocery store, going to, the next town over, things like that, they're fine.
Those are all first gen EVs, right? Leaf,
exactly.
i3, Fiat 500e, first gen Bolt. Like, those are all first gen EVs that aren't going to get you very far. They're kind of quirky, they're kind of interesting, and you can get those for decently cheap. The next gen is like kind of what we're in right now. It's like Ioniq 5, it's Mach-E, it's Model 3. It's a lot of those EVs that are still new and still on the road. So you're not seeing really any used versions of those cars yet. But, give it a few years and it'll kind of just turn into the used car market. It's not going to be anything different than what we're seeing with gas cars.
Mm-hmm. And my take on this is there is going to be a big transition period. And when I say big, I guess I mean long. We're going to have gas-powered vehicles for decades still. It's not going to be like all of a sudden it's 2030 and the only thing you can get is an electric car. Gas-powered cars, even brand new, are going to be around for quite a while. They're still going to be just all over in the used market. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more tier 1 and tier 2 purchases be EVs. Tier 3 and tier 4 is still going to remain gasoline for a while. Has the newer generations of EVs as you get more into the market, as they get cheaper. And I think it's ultimately going to be a fairly seamless transition. Bruce, you were saying maybe a year or two where it might be kind of weird. I think it's just going to be a seamless transition. It's going to be decades in the making though. Yeah.
To add to that real quick, we have not, to my knowledge, at least in the U.S., among the Stellantis, GM, and Ford, not one of them have committed to doing a fully electric heavy-duty model yet. Mm-hmm. That, those models are going to remain, whether it's turbo diesel or gasoline powered, that your Super Duties, your Ram HDs, stuff like that those are going to be gasoline for the foreseeable future for us.
And when you're talking about tier 3 or tier 4, okay, used between 10 and 20,000, used under 10,000. Right now we're talking about vehicles that are probably 10 years old, maybe even a little bit older. So if you're thinking of, okay, some automakers are trying to be all electric by 2035. That means tier 3 and tier 4 is going back 2025, which is still a couple years. It's still a few years from now, even. So I think it's going to be a seamless transition. Has more EVs move into the market. But what a fabulous question, we need more questions like this. Email us podcast@motor1.com. We love stuff like this that just noodles into our brain. And this one, Ted, bravo. This was a great question.
Ted, my wife is a librarian, and you clearly have a librarian's mind because it's the type of question she would ask me. So good on you.
Well, guys, since we're talking about cheap cars and car prices, do we want to reveal our quick cheap car challenge here to close out this episode? Are we ready?
Yeah,
to
we're
do
at an
that?
hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's each do one. I had two ready, but yeah, let's each do one.
Okay, well, let's explain what it is here first. We're coming up with the 4th of July, and I theorized, okay, what's something that we haven't done before? How about demolition derby vehicles? I mean, how much fun would that be? Just go out and buy something really cheap that you're going to take to a demolition derby. You know what? It could be a car that you hate. It could be a car that you love. It can be a car that you just think is cool and neat and would be fun to just have a thrash around the figure 8 in. So that was the premise here. Demolition derby cars. I initially said, let's try to get them for $500 because it's demolition derby, man. You're basically taking $500. You're basically paying $500 to wreck your own car, right?
Yeah.
Turns out the used car market is pretty. It's not like it used to be. So we bumped it to 1,000 with bonus points if you can find something for 500. Of course, the general stipulation is okay. Try to keep it fairly close to your area. $500, awesome. $1,000, acceptable. Who wants to go first? No takers.
I'll go.
Okay, Bruce. It's you. You're first.
I did find a $500 car, and it would be acceptable for a demolition derby. Oops, I pressed the wrong button.
Oh no!
Nope, I'm sharing it now.
It's not sold, is it? Okay, here we go.
No, it's not sold. No, we're good. It is a 1999 Saturn SC2. Or I'm sorry, it must be an SC4.
Oh, wow.
That's a terrible demolition. It's plastic, Bruce.
Yeah.
You brought a plastic car to a demolition derby.
It's the only thing I could find for $500, dude. Apparently, the rear trailing arm has rusted to the body, but otherwise, it is a running and driving vehicle.
A running and driving vehicle for $500. That's bravo right there.
Yeah,
that's something you can actually license and put on the road.
There aren't many in this, especially these days. I was talking a minute ago about inflation. $500 for a running and driving vehicle that needs some slight maintenance, but fine. If I will show you the other one I picked. We can do this. We got time. No. Yeah, this will only take a second. I found a 1967 Mercury for $1,000, and the reason I picked it was they said was going to be a good derby car.
Oh, wow.
You actually found a derby car.
If he says it's going to be a good, and I guess all of these like extra tires and wheels come with it.
That.
I have no idea. I'm guessing here. It has
no
no
hood in
hood.
the trunk.
You win. Yeah. You win a derby with that.
So
just because there's like a foot and a half of empty space between the grill and the engine. That's a foot and a half worth of space that you can just ram into everything else. The trunk is big enough to like rent out as a dorm room for college students.
Yeah.
So you can
half of a good demolition derby is looking cool, right? And that thing is badass. And it's like we all play Wreckfest, right? And that's like something you'd see on the game Wreckfest for sure, like spray painted or some crazy.
Yes.
Totally played Wreckfest. I hadn't played it for a while. I totally went back and played it just to prep for this episode a little bit.
So yeah, 67 Mercury so those were the two that I found.
That's
who wants to go next?
Does that Mercury run? Did they say it ran?
He did not. He said it was what do you say? Parts car or good
parts
derby
or derby?
Car.
Well, yeah, good derby car if you put an engine in it.
It had an engine. You could see the engine in it. So
what was the engine under the hood or in the trunk though?
Good point.
Jeff, do you want to go next?
I'll go next because mine is boring, so yours is probably better. But I was thinking like competitively, and I want to win this demolition derby, so I got something that is not a tank, but I guess it's the biggest thing you'll probably have to take down. It is a 2014 Ford Transit cargo van.
How did you find a 2014 anything for $1,000?
I don't know. It's got 130,000 miles
next to it. Like this thing has lived a life because apparently. And then, this is just some guy who sells like old
way
commercial
used.
vehicles.
Yeah, but look at that big body. It's got a good
Wow.
engine.
Yeah.
It's not fast, but it's durable. So that
Dude,
would
I
be
mean, if
my.
that runs and drives and it's a cargo van,
Yeah.
It's in
Some
good
guy who
condition, so
paints
I'm
houses
assuming.
around here would love to have that. I know
go
that.
buy it and
Oh,
like
yeah.
flip it for like, sell it for like $3,000.
Oh yeah, I could take it to CarMax and
Yeah.
they'll buy it for $3,000.
Good condition for $1,000. I'm not raising a BS flag because this is a good find, and we're looking at the
Yeah.
ad right now, but
I was
good
a little
condition,
worried about
$1,000. It's like, who was murdered in the back? Come on.
It is Miami,
Dexter.
so
It's
it
been
could have
stripped
been.
out.
Oh yeah, it could have been Dexter's car from the show. But yeah, I think it's a good one. I would spray paint something crazy on the side of that panel.
Oh, of course.
For sure.
Just spray
It's a
paint
demo
candy.
car.
Just spray
that's the
paint
rule.
candy on the side and get it over.
Free
with.
candy.
Free candy, and then just run into that. That's not a boring find. That's impressive as hell.
All right.
2014 Transit Cargo.
Yeah.
You're up.
Okay. I have 3 that I'll mention, but I gotta
got
go
5 minutes. So do as many as you can in 5 minutes.
So I'll go with this one. And yes, if you're a regular listener, you'll know that I purposefully had to
It's
find
a Taurus.
I
It's going to be
purposefully
a
had
Taurus.
I purposefully had to find a Pontiac Grand Am.
Okay.
I'm not gonna win, but it's $650. It runs. It's in St. Louis,
Oof.
which is an aggressive day drive for me, but I can get there. 195,000 miles. It's got the V6, runs and drives, has an
They all
exhaust
had
leak.
the V6. Oh no, they had the force.
No AC,
show us
but
the
will
other
get you
images.
where you need to go. I mean, there's not really much else to see. I mean, it's a Craigslist, so obviously they can't take a photo with the entire car in the picture.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
been
got the
well
plastic.
loved.
It's got the plastic interior. I think
Yeah,
it was
that's a
red.
rough-
I think it was red at one point. It's $650.
You're right. Exactly. It's that cheap. Who
of course.
cares?
But hey, it's a running and driving Pontiac Grand Am that I can buy and just like park in the middle and just sit there and just let people run into it. And that would make me happy.
You got enough time for one more? Last one.
That would make me totally happy. I'll do just a quick mention. I did find a 91 Volvo 240 wagon and a
that lasts
sedan
forever.
for $1,000, but there are no photos. And it says
Wow.
both start and can be driven, but neither is ready to be a daily driver. They have their issues and need a home where they will be restored. So I don't know if this person would be happy with me showing up to buy them as a demolition derby car, but it's in Montana, which is just across the way. But this is the one. This is the one that I have to go with
For
This-
$1,000?
for
Now
a
that
grand.
thing's a tank. That's an actual
2008 Dodge Magnum Sport Wagon, 4-door.
It's got to have the V6, right?
It's got the. I think it's the V6. Actually, I don't think it says.
There's no way it's
exactly-
got the V8.
It doesn't say exactly what engine is in there. I think it's the SXT, which would be the 6. That's fine. It's a demo. It's a demolition. derby car.
For $1,000.
Cars for parts only. It has a good running motor and transmission. No issues. The car has a wiring problem and it blows fuses for the taillights and blinkers. So
You don't need that when you're driving.
you don't need that for demolition derby. And I'm looking at it and it's like, you know what? Maybe just like fix the wiring issue. But no, $1,000. 2006 Dodge, 2008 Dodge Magnum Sport Wagon. The wagon in Wreckfest is like my go-to vehicle. I very much wanted a wagon. I found 0 like big B-body wagons, like Caprice wagons, the Roadmaster wagons, the Oldsmobile. I found none of those. I found no Crown Vic wagons. I did find a couple Crown Vic like ex-cop cars over in Oregon, which is technically going to be too far away. And those were all $1,000. So yeah, the Grand Am, I guess, would be my choice just so I can enjoy beating it up. But that Magna, man, how cool would that be?
That's the winner. That's the winner chicken dinner of this one.
Yeah.
What about your demolition derby choices, folks? For under $1,000, can you find them? Can you find one for under 500? Email us podcast@motor1.com. You've heard me say it a gazillion times because we want to get a gazillion emails. So email us, comment. Guys, I think we're just about done with this episode as we head into the long 4th of July holiday weekend. I hope you both have a very wonderful time. Hope you both get a chance to spend some time with family, maybe eat some good food, enjoy some good fireworks. And that same goes for everybody listening out there, wherever you are in the world.
But let's give Jeff a second. Jeff, is there anything you want to promote? Anything you have coming up? Anything that you've done that's cool? Anything? Go. This is your time. Go for it, man.
Just read my stuff on Motor One. I've got a good, more in-depth story of the Subaru GL from Goodwood. At this point, it's probably published. So go read that if you haven't already. Go, what's the word? Engage. Go engage with us on the Motor One.
Engage. Go
engage on the motor1.com Instagram and Twitter. I'm handling those, and I always respond to people sometimes. So yeah, that's it. Just, Motor One stuff.
And our Twitter and our Instagram, our boss, you're doing a great job there. And especially on Instagram. And bravo for getting the Tesla people involved on Twitter. Some brilliant tactics right there. We love you.
Hey, I try my best.
All right. Well, that'll be our show for tonight then. So good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We appreciate you. Like Smith has been saying, like I've been saying, the email address is podcast at let me do that again. Podcast at motor1.com.
There we go.
That's it. Also, Motor One Podcast is the YouTube channel where you can find us. And like Smith said, you can find us on pretty much every podcast distribution source, whether your Spotify's, your Amazon's, your Apple's, we're out there. You can find us there. So yeah, we appreciate everyone. We love getting questions in. We love getting comments in, positive or negative. So it's just always fun. Thank you, everyone. We've got some cool guests lined up in the future.
Yes, we do.
It'll be a fun time. So thanks, everyone. Good night and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.